in my personal life and how I felt Galeo fit into that and everything. And so that was really, it was always very nice to have that and know I have his support, not only professionally, but personally as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. And he does, he and his team have been doing a lot and fighting an uphill battle. When they called me here from Sacramento, which was 2004, my first day was the first day of January 2005. They said, well, they need a Latino, Hispanic bilingual reporter. I'm like, Georgia? Didn't know. I mean, I came from the West Coast, you know, and so, yeah, there was definitely a lot of interaction and stories with immigration and everything. So, yeah, God bless them for putting up the fight. So anyway, I see your gala's coming up, and I'd love to help. I'm not quite sure what Galeo needs, where they're at, how they fundraise. Because I see you have a silent auction, and I'm a licensed auctioneer that uses traditional cards, and yeah, I can do that 25, 35, able to buy now 45, and in Spanish too. 25 puede cobrar 25 now 25. 25.
Wow.
When I do Latino groups, I kind of kick into my bilingualism, and I'm a certified bilingual auctioneer. But I think when it comes to fundraising, we're not really selling anything. You try and sell a watch, and everybody will try and get a bargain. We're asking people to be part of patrons and friends of organizations like Galeo to be part of a much bigger cause than themselves.
Yeah.
So first thing, we're not selling anything. Am I an auctioneer? Yeah. Can I sell stuff? Yeah. Do I sell cars and stuff? Yeah, it's not really my thing. My thing is raising funds for nonprofits that I care for and love and are close to my heart. And that has to do, I hope Galeo's in there, but Latino organizations, children with cancer, kids who age out of foster care, orphanages in Guatemala and Cambodia, schools, the list goes on. I do about 30 of these a year. So, while it is good to me, it was time to kind of move on. And it's like, I was, I think, kind of done with the news. So I really enjoyed this. So I don't know. Tell me, I suppose, what you want to share with me about where you guys are at and how I can help.
Yeah. So we are having our 20th anniversary gala. Traditionally, we have a luncheon during Hispanic Heritage Month. We have converted that this year to a gala.
Oh, okay.
In order to celebrate. We have not done a gala or any sort of large event since our 15th anniversary. And so a lot of it is untested. We've never done a silent auction. And I've done many of them. I've worked for organizations like TechBridge and their digital ball. I plan that, as well as working for organizations like Operation Homefront and planning golf tournaments and all of that stuff. I'm a career nonprofit person, clearly.
So you've been done.
Yes. So I know the puzzle pieces, but I don't know how this audience is going to respond to them necessarily. So with our silent auction, we're kind of throwing that net wide because we don't necessarily know what's going to trigger donations with people. One of the things that I have found at our events is that once people sit down, they don't give me any more money.
What do you mean?
Like if I say on stage during the programming, hey, scan the QR code and donate, make a monthly donation, make a donation. No. Nothing.
Well, especially if you do it with a phone.
Yeah. Like there's nothing. Even if it's like meet somebody in the lobby and they can help you. Like I've tried all the different techniques, including just give me something right then and there. And I think I have raised in the 4 or 5 events that I've done, maybe a total of $100 out of that. And so And that's me being really generous to my number. Um, but so that was kind of where I was intrigued by you and figuring out, especially when you kind of said you could do like an auction for a cause.
Mhm.
I don't know. We may have a couple items that could be turned into a live auction from our silent auction.
Mhm.
Um, that would be kind of where I'd want to know, get your advice on that, on like what you've seen work well as live auction items. Because we have a few consignment trips where I'm like, is
Yeah.
that something you start with? Um,
And
and then of course also before I can even sign up, I'll need to know pricing to take to Jerry to
oh, I
confirm.
know. And I think I told you this. I sent Jerry a text, and I'm like,
Yeah,
"Oh, I love Jerry's." I'm like, Esther got it from Fox 5. I'm like, I hope he doesn't mind. So I sent him a text, and I thought, all right,
yeah.
I'm not going to pester him. And I thought, well, what am I going to do next? And I saw you, and I said, well, I'm going to reach out to the development director. So thank you. Um,
Yes, exactly. It's always best to come through me because
I
Jerry
know.
gets too much. Yeah.
I know, because Jerry's overwhelmed. I don't know. He's never overwhelmed, but he's got a full plate. Let's put it that way. Uh,
Yes, full
I
plate is
will
great.
say that about Jerry. I've seen him under a lot of pressure with lots of cameras and he always stands his ground because he believes uh, dearly in what he does. So I've always
Mhm.
respected him immensely and his organization, Galeo. Anyway, so what works and why? First of all, let me ask you a couple of things. What are you using for software to conduct your silent?
We have recently signed a contract with One Cause, formerly BidPal.
I know One Cause well.
Good.
One Cause is formerly BidPal. So One Cause is now kind of the behemoth in the
Mhm.
fundraising crowd because it's One Cause, which was BidPal, which was Gesture, which was 501c. Three different fundraising companies: Chicago, Atlanta, I believe, and then the West Coast. Anyway, they merged and created a bigger one, One Cause. One Cause, is it charity, chastity, Claire? Anyway, One Cause has teams that they can
Mhm.
send out. And I was in Chicago doing an event for Brother Rice. I love Brother Rice in Chicago. They called me out. My buddies from Chicago, George, I need you now. Get out here. I love Chicago. It's just a hoot to go out there. I've got one more coming up also in Chicago for Gigi's Playhouse. I love Gigi's Playhouse. Anyway, One Cause can send a team to help you out as you register the night of. One Cause also is part of SEAL Kids. SEAL Kids is a great nonprofit that helps the children of Navy SEALs. Oh, I love
Mm.
and boy, talk about a don't be intimidated moment, George. Who's in the crowd? It's the about half of the Navy SEAL team that took out Osama bin Laden. Yeah,
Well, and also, like, you're adding in a bunch of Navy SEALs and their kids.
and their
And
kids.
it's like, yes, they care about the country. They're going to defend the country, but they're kids.
Well, if the family life of a Navy SEAL isn't safe, our country's less safe. I
Exactly.
really believe that. I really
That
believe.
was actually the mission of Operation Homefront
Oh
that I
yes,
came from,
right.
where they believe that if the family is not secure
Absolutely.
and safe, that our country won't be, because if they're struggling financially,
Yep.
people aren't going to re-up, which means you got to train more. And if they're over and deployed and they're worried about a plumbing situation, they're not going to be concentrating, and that could eventually cause death.
It's a talk about one, classified, but two, uh, high risk, dangerous mission. It doesn't get more than the Navy SEALs. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love the SEAL kids, and this would be my fifth one for them. So
Mhm.
they send me all over the country to do their events. So yeah, I know how to do this.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm getting at. I'd love to meet Homefront, by the way, if you know anybody over there.
Um, I would be happy to do an introduction to you, because I do know that they have events. They're a national organization, of course. And so I can do a friendly introduction. If you send me some paperwork and stuff,
Of course.
That way I need to figure out who's doing what I think you would want now, since it's been two years. So I want to make sure I give you the right
Yeah,
person.
no worries. That's just that's an added bonus of just even meeting you. I appreciate that, because name sales.
Yeah. I mean, I think
me.
it'd be nice for them to have this in their back pocket.
Yeah. So as far as fundraising, I spoke about those other ones because we have a plan, we have an approach, and the plan and the approach typically has to have a powerful software and team behind it to execute it. So I know you got the software. I imagine you have a team. I don't know when it comes to registering people and things like that, and they show up with their people. So you don't need as robust.
I don't think they're showing up with the plan we went with. So we went pretty cheap, given.
Yeah, I understood.
And so, because our plan was like $500. Just given that we didn't know whether or not anybody would like this.
Well, I think that generally speaking, folks who attend a fundraiser or two have done this before. I find that it's not really a surprise to anybody when we're doing a fundraiser, because they're like, well, we've never one done before. And I always ask, well, do you think the patrons have been at one before? Probably. So I don't know this to be the case with GALEO. I think there's a age divide. I think younger people find it easier to be techie. Older people find it easier to do this. The card, I like the card, but I'm pretty sure that GALEO has its patrons who, on a consistent basis, have shown support. I mean, I guess I say that because I've watched social media through Jerry and other folks who support him, and whether that's, oh gosh, I don't want to name drop anybody, but a little bit, Santiago with Latin American Association, or Gabriel Vaca with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, or folks of that ilk. Those folks and some of their followers, I think, would be fine with fundraising. The question is, do you have a team? Who's in the crowd? And if you could say yes and yes to both, then it's like, okay, well then what are the components of fundraising, which you already know? To me, it's the silent auction, which would likely open a week ahead of time, so that you have people online, or doing online, sometimes 2 days or some days, and then you close the silent auction the night of, and then you do a fund a need and a live auction. Have you done fund a needs or live auctions before? And I take it GALEO has not.
GALEO has not. I have done live auctions, not a fund a need.
Okay.
Wait, no, we did do a fund a need at the digital ball.
What was the digital ball?
The Tech Bridge digital ball. It raises, just to get in the door, it's $1,000 a ticket, and usually in-house raises $250,000 just in the room.
That's a big gala.
Yeah, it was 1,000 people. That is like my feather in my cap, where I'm like, yes, I did this.
Yes. Gotcha. Okay.
So
you've seen the big money at these events. It can be
you can do it. I'm looking at our one cause, and it does give us the option of assigning bid numbers.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
So I was just making sure with what level we were at. And
you know what? They're not going to say no to If you upgrade, of course they're going to say yes, we can upgrade. So whatever level you're at, but I understand that budget is always an issue. I get that.
Yeah.
I totally get it. But it also comes down to, like, are you stepping over quarters? Are you stepping over dollars to reach for quarters? That's what sometimes people say, well, we can't do that. I'm like, well, okay. But do you think the potential for money is there? Yeah, but we can't afford it. And I'm like, well, okay. I get it. I really do. But the big picture is, what's the potential? And if you've never done a gala for GALEO, and this is a first, then wow, what an interesting time.
Yeah, well, and what I'm hoping is the silent auction really becomes something that's that it really draws that need, maybe even the fund a need, so that when we're doing our breakfasts and doing our lunches, maybe we do a smaller version. And the reason why I signed up when I did was because we've signed a 1-year contract,
Right.
so that we'll be able to try it at our smaller event as well.
Yeah.
And see whether or not that ends up working out well for us too.
Well, what I find, and how many patrons you expect at the event?
Right now we're at about 180 who have already committed or seats are taken.
Okay.
I am hoping for 300.
Okay. And I take it these are sit-down tables?
Yes, they're going to be sit-down tables. We are going to have dancing and a DJ. The program is going to be very, very short. This one is not going to be like our luncheons and breakfasts where we have an hour-long program. It is going to be more retrospective with thoughts to the future.
Yes, I get it.
And then it will be sit-down dinner, dessert bar, cocktails, etc. And TBD on the timing for closing the silent auction. I go back and forth on it because it's going to close somewhere between 9 and 10. I know that.
Okay.
But the program's probably going to end around 9. But then I think people are going to be dancing and drinking, and when they drink, they bid more.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of like, ooh, that sounds nice. But then I also think some people will leave.
Oh, yeah. Start time is, I think I saw it, 6:30, 6 o'clock.
Yeah, an hour-long happy hour.
Okay.
And then
7 is the happy hour.
Yeah, 6:30 to 7.
Okay.
We'll have
okay.
We'll have a then we'll have people sit down, but Latinos will not sit down. So we're hoping people will be seated by around, we can serve by 8, no later. Program will start at 8. And then I know I want to end the program, like the end the program with a group photo, hoping that everybody will get up, take a picture, and start dancing.
I love it. Yeah. Generally, when we do fundraisers, well, before I even get there, what do you think your goal is? Have you put a number on it?
I really would, like, my ultimate goal from the silent auction, I would love to raise $10,000 from the silent auction. And I would probably fold your stuff into that.
Well, generally speaking, my fundraising events, I would say it's fair to say that they range from $45,000 to $280,000, $300,000. On average, $100,000 plus. And I don't see why GALEO can't do that. And
yeah,
I really don't.
Well, and especially going into 2024.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing, is it's fodder for donations. It's like, we need you. Do you want more Latinos registered to vote?
Right.
Do you want better voting laws? This is it.
This is it.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the setup generally is hopefully a softball setup, so that, for example, a couple examples. Joshua's Wish. They have raised money for the families of kids with cancer, rare brain
Mhm.
cancer. It's kind of sad, but also life saving. And there's a mom who comes up and says, without Joshua's Wish, we'd be struggling, and we don't even know if my daughter would be here. And it's always about the heartfelt moment
Mhm.
right before you do the ask. So whether that's Jerry or somebody who maybe has come up because of Galeo, and they say, without Galeo, I wouldn't have cast my first vote, or I wouldn't have been able to make a difference in our community, or whatever that heartfelt story is. And then you go to the fundraising. And then I don't know what your levels are, but generally speaking, the levels are 5,000, 2,500, 1,000, 500, 250, and $100. And Musk Ministries, big organization. Uh,
Mhm.
they called me. No, this is my third time, so it'll be my fourth time. I'm like, we're still in, good, because we do it and we do it well and we make money. And the first time they said, oh, we can't ask him for $5,000. Why not? Because we never start there. We've always started at 25. I said, if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. I don't know.
Yeah.
And we went back. I couldn't believe I was having a debate with the board, and some people really felt like we can't ask people. I said, well, you're not asking, I'm asking. So don't worry about it. I'm the third voice. I'm the independent voice. And there's a lot of truth to that, because I suppose Jerry could ask, but that's not his role. His role is to carry out the mission of Galea.
Right. And usually I'll have board members and others asking. But it hasn't worked. And
Why?
yeah, I mean, nothing's it's definitely a surprising struggle, because every single other organization that I have worked at,
Mm-hmm.
and done these events, I would say that it would have been a bad night if I had raised $1,000 only.
Yeah.
And no matter what the event was, like just the smaller, including like the golf tournaments and things like
Yeah.
that, I
Right.
would have called that a bad day.
Right.
And now here I am at Galeo going, gosh, I wish we could raise $1,000 at one of these events. And we always break even. We always make a little bit of money. But this event, I would love to make a lot of money.
How? But because I don't know who does this, but I can count on two hands the calls I've gotten where people say, "Oh, we had a board member try, or we had a parent try," and one, they were uncomfortable. Two was obvious they were uh, nervous. So either they're going to be nervous, or they've never done this before, or they're way over the top and they're full of themselves, and then they push people and they push too hard, or they're inebriated, or you could do a Sharon Stone and yell
Well,
at people.
or they're simply reading my script.
Right. No, and
Like that's the thing, is that like I would say if you go look at every event I do, you
yeah.
now can see like there's a trend on how I phrase things
Okay.
every time. And it's like,
Right. It has to be heartfelt. And I
yeah,
think,
and I know they care. I know they tell stories. We did have a board member tell a really great story.
mhm,
Problem was I didn't know it was coming, so I didn't prep her
mhm.
to then go, and if you want more story, if you want to help more people like me,
Then let's continue the mission we need you to give.
yeah. So like she told this great story and everybody was really empowered, and then we moved on.
Yeah. Do you have an MC for the night, or who's doing all that?
So we don't have an MC, mostly because we're going to show a video that's going to
Mhm,
kind of be like the history a little bit. It's going to be um that's going to be the start of the program.
mhm,
And these are all tentative current run of show because I haven't fully fallen in love with it yet. Then I was thinking our board chair would come up, just to kind of maybe speak a little bit about, he's been involved for a very long time.
Uh-huh.
So speak a little bit about the history and his hopes and dreams of where we go and that kind of thing. And then introduce Jerry, and Jerry would
Right.
give more of a future kind of situation. With, and I know this is not including your involvement at all. And then Jerry would end it with, hey, everybody, come up here and we'll take a group photo of all of us, you know, and we have a stage along with the dance floor. So then I kind of figure everybody can get on the dance floor and the photographer can be on the stage.
Yeah.
And get the photo.
Oh,
and it also allows for the hotel to start pulling things.
Well, as far as the flow of show and how I fit into these, let's see. The next one is Sunshine on a Rainy Day, Planned Pethood, Saving Susan Ministries. And they all kind of have the same flow, that you start with a silent auction and the meet and greet goes on for about an hour. Some people do an hour and a half, which is way too long.
I agree.
You can always tell when it's time to move on, when people start milling about and they've shaken every hand and okay, now people are milling about and standing about. There's a different vibe and energy and activity that's happening. Move on. And are you having the silent auction in a same room or a different room, or is it all digital and you don't have displays?
We're going to have displays. It's going to be pre-function. It's going to be in kind of the pre-function area.
In a different room.
So it'll be a different room than the ballroom, but it'll be right outside.
Right. So it's in the foyer and then into the ballroom.
Correct.
Okay. So how do you?
And then we'll have the photo booth along with the 360.
Right. Oh, grades now. Yeah, going around and.
Exactly. Yeah, that was. So we'll have all of that in the same area as well, encouraging people to. Yeah. I think I saw a kitty walk down the stairs.
I think you did. Are you a cat person?
I am. I have 3.
Oh my gosh! Oh, forget it's over now. My wife. Yeah. It's like the cats and me in the car somewhere, and I fit into the mix somewhere. Yeah, Yellowfeather has 3 cats, and that was Tiger. And
yes, Fred came over to visit while you were talking. He's
Boy,
his government name is Frederick Douglass.
Oh, I love it.
I have Eleanor Roosevelt and Alexander Hamilton.
Oh my gosh, isn't that great? As long as one of them doesn't pull a dual pistol.
I know. That's why I won't go Aaron Burr.
That's classic. That's so cool. I love history. Good for you. So because you mentioned cats, and I was about to mention cats, how do you herd the cats? And by that, I mean, they're in the silent auction area and then time to go to the live event. What do you do to do that, to get them out of there and into that room?
So the silent auction area isn't necessarily big enough for all 300 people to be in there at the same time. So I will probably have the ballroom open the whole time. This most recent Power Breakfast, we actually had a gong that finally got people to sit down. I was very impressed with it. I was thinking, I don't know if I'm going to go with a gong again or not, but I do think that will work nicely if we.
Yeah. Well, let's see. What have we had over the years? At the Fox Theater, the Egyptian Ballroom, we had it's kind of a art group, and they had earthy drums, boom, 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 boom. It was so cool, and everybody walked into the drum beat. At I forget which one it was. There's a citizen marching band that's really cool, and there's literally a marching band walked everybody in. We've had people with xylophones, ding, 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 ding. People who flick the lights on and off. Some way to get the Pied Piper mentality to herd the cats, because that's, if you just leave it to them, it'll never happen.
Exactly. That's what I found, because the first time I did it, I really did. I've always experienced when somebody gets up on stage and starts saying, take your seats, take your seats, most of the time people will start moving towards that.
Mm-hmm.
But especially with this crowd, nope. They're like, whatever, that was a suggestion and I'm
Mm-hmm.
ignoring it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it has been one of those where every time I get my feedback from the board, because I'm very big on feedback from everybody who goes to a lot of events, and so I can make it better every time. And every time I was getting the feedback of the event did not start on time, and I'm like, yes, that is because I went over to you 12 times saying sit down, and you wouldn't sit down.
And that was going to ask kind of my next question. Sometimes when your board members and your luminaries and the people who are seen as the leaders, and they're setting the example by not sitting down, that
Exactly.
hurts. And I don't know that they realize that because they're having a good time, and that's cool. But at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, if your main function is to fundraise, you're on a definite energy timeline.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So we're saying the same things, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You've been there, done that. So as far as my concern or my involvement, I typically come in about 8:15, 8:20, 8:30.
Mm-hmm.
Put it this way, when it comes to fundraising, I really believe in this. It's like this, like this, like this,
Mm-hmm.
like that. The energy level is crucial. So if you're watching the energy curve, 8 o'clock is kind of the top. 8:15, 8:20, they're starting to come down a little bit. They're still up. 9 o'clock is
Mm-hmm.
kind of the death nail. 9:30, just move on. If you get to fundraising after 9 o'clock, it's hurting the cause. So I like to
Yeah,
tell my fundraising partners, start at 9 and work your way backwards. Fundraising should be done by 9 o'clock. And by fundraising, I
I
typically
agree.
mean a live auction and a fund to need, and a live auction. And I used to be old school, much more so that the live auction would be first and then the fund to need. But now I don't believe it has to be that way because generally speaking, at a fundraiser, your live auction items are going to be about, if you're lucky, 25% of your audience is going to participate in a live event. And for the
Mm-hmm.
others, uh, it's a show. That's why we call it auctiontainment. And I'm pretty good up there. 20 bother to buy, able to buy, sir. It's only money and a pretty more every
Yeah,
day. Now, yeah, you know. So we have fun, and I've got bid spotters, and they're going, yep, yep, yep. So we do an auction, and
and
it's
we have
fast and
some, and I will say we have some really great staff members who would be great at the bid spotting.
mm-hmm.
They'll be so engaged and be
Right,
there with
right,
you,
right.
and
Love it.
so
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
I'll even recruit my mother. Um,
I love that. If your mom's there, that's a great thing. So yeah, so we can, and I would say for live auction, 3, 5 at the most. People like to see auctions, and I can kind of do it in Espanol. I think that crowd would fit for that. Yeah,
I think a little bit of a bilingual one
yeah, just going
would
back to,
go over well
and as far as, your
because we
champions.
do have we are getting more of a crowd who are supporting, who are not members of the community but are supporting the community,
When the community, you mean members of GALEO?
members of like the Latino community. So
Oh
like,
my gosh, yeah. It's so the thing I think about when it comes to uh, Galeo and others who are helping communities kind of lift themselves up by the bootstraps is a group I work with, which is the Survivors and Thrivers of Domestic Violence. The ladies were great. And we did it 3 years in a row. And I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm losing money, guys. And I was doing it with them, and I was fine with it. But she was also the organizer. I think was getting a little burnt out because she needed to bring in the judges, the advocates, people with the money, and the people who were there were the survivors and thrivers, the recipients of the help. they didn't have any money. So we'd make a little bit of money, but not very much. And so that's what I mean. But if we're at like 6,000, then 12,000, then 15, and I think we got to about 20 at one point, which was a lot for them. But I thought, that's not much. And it's always about perspective. And so that's why I say who's in the crowd. And if you get others who believe in true freedom and true diversity and in the mission of GALEO, it isn't necessarily going to be the familia que viven allí that is going to go vote for the first time. That's not where the money is. The money's in the advocates.
Well, and I don't want to give Trump any credit, but the one thing that he did was he united a lot of minority groups. You were like, where are you going with this, ma'am? But
I'll tell you why. You finish first.
But yeah, things like NAACP and Asian minority groups and Muslims, etc.
Exactly.
We, as a whole, have started supporting each other. A lot of cases, we're buying tables at their events, they're buying tables at our events. And that's where I'm like, yes, okay, we're not going to have a fully Spanish speaking group, but we are going to have a fully committed group.
Absolutely. Which is the most important thing, because it goes back to that group of the ladies who were the recipients of the help, but they didn't have any money. They needed that broad fan to include others in the community who believe in the same principles, who are under the same tent, an umbrella of love and inclusivity that says this is necessary and rightful and righteous, and we got to stay on this path. No, the reason I laughed about Trump is because I was there when he was in Georgia, and he made the comment about Mexicans and rapists and all that. And then he said the press is the enemy of the state. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm Mexican and I'm a reporter, man. What are you talking about? Killed me. And I was just laughing. I'm going, dude, really? But anyway.
This is actually like, Trump is one of the reasons why I really wanted to come over here. It was really, I believe in, I definitely believe that GALEO is going to create better laws for Latinos, but I also feel like they're going to create better laws for women. Yeah. And I'm going, and as I tell Jerry, high tide rises all boats. So if you get better laws, I get a better laws.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great message. That's a great message. So to have that inclusion of women and Muslims and others in our community who may feel underrepresented and even slighted by the political tones that are out there, because it's out there. Oh boy. Anyway.
Yeah. We got distracted.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I would have a fund a need and an auction, I think, in that order. And I think if you've got one cause, then I think you need with 300 people, I think you need 3 volunteers to register people, and then some folks to input the data into the one cause, because the struggle is going to be to get people out the door and get their funds. There's always at the end of the program, and then inputting the data into the software so that the patrons, I believe One Cause does do this, that they can send them a text or an email and they click and then they check out, or they can go to the front and then check out as well. But if you've got silent auction items, then you need runners to give them whatever those silent auction items are. And if it's a physical, bourbon or whatever, or golf clubs or memorabilia, then somebody has to hand it to them. So those are behind the scenes players, and I can obviously help you guys coordinate that. But I think the fund a need is really the biggest moneymaker, because people, they may not necessarily need a live auction item, but they believe in the cause. And, Uncle Sam says it's a write-off. I don't play that off heavy, but just a quick reminder of the audience, somebody else remind them. And even in your messaging, you remind them of that. And then you just ask. And then you say, your investment in Galeo will do this. And I believe specific is terrific, as in, for, let's say, one example is a friend's house. A friend's house is a McDonough shelter. And I went and I toured the shelter. So, well, they don't have any doors. And they were like, no, we don't have any doors. We didn't have enough money to buy the doors, literally, on 26 rooms with teenagers, and 2 teenagers to a room. And so they had like the hippie beads, and they're like, we need doors. I said, you need doors. So for $5,000, you can buy doors. And we specifically said at $5,000, we're going to get, I think it was 13 doors, $10,000, all the doors, $2,500 new flooring, $1,000 a couple new chase lounges, $500 backpacks, or whatever. You specifically line up what the investment, what the funds are going to do for the money. With Galeo, does that mean at $2,500 we can have more clinics, or does that mean it means better outreach? Does that mean it allows us to bring in more help so that we have outreach? Does that mean supply to continue all that? And that, I'm sure you guys can figure that money out. So you tell your patrons how the money is going to be. I never say spent. I like to say invested. You're investing in the future of our great community, and Galeo's helping you to do that. And then we do that, and then you go, and I don't know if this crowd is ready for that, but we've got games, if you will, like Last Hero. The Last Hero is the last person to raise their bidder card wins.
Oh, I love that one.
Oh, you know what it is?
Yeah, I love that one.
Okay.
That's like, I watched that. I went to a Kate's Club event, and it raised $17,000.
Yeah. And
they combined it with a live auction because they managed to get a really good whiskey bottle.
Was it like a Pappy Van Winkle?
I think so.
Yeah.
Like that one where they only donate 2 a year or something. They got that. Yeah. That's my dream of getting one of those someday.
And if you need, I mean, I can get those for you. I'm connected to, all of the consigned companies that work with benefit auctioneers.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't mind some support to.
Oh yeah. And I was going to say about the live auction, I can connect you or send you or help you with the travel packages. And the thing about travel packages is, okay, who's in your crowd? Do they want to go to Miami? Do they want to go to Belize? I wish I could get them into Cuba. Cuba's shut down. I had an into Cuba recently.
I'm so annoyed that my parents made it to Cuba before it shut down.
Yeah, I was in Cuba a year ago, and it's something.
That's.
Yeah, I was in Havana, and I went on a fly fishing trip in the Canarios archipelago, but that was beautiful. But yeah, so Belize, I just got something from somebody who said there's a cabana in Belize they can get, or Costa Rica, or Tuscany, or the capitals of Europe, or fly fishing in British Columbia. I mean, the world is your oyster.
Yeah, which
the
also
Grammys or the Emmys or the Super Bowl, all those are available. And what I typically like to do with my fundraising partners is I'll send them a kind of a from A to Z list, and I said, go with your gut feeling, and what do you think your patrons would want, and what are the levels? Whether it's $1,000 7-day all-inclusive Cancun trip, which is a really good bargain, but it's all inclusive, so you're not going to get. Put it this way, you're probably going to get Cuervo instead of what's the high-end tequila anyway. So it is what it is, but you can start at $1,000 and then you can go, the sky's the limit. Generally speaking, I find that fundraisers are kind of in the money at about $3,500 to $4,000, where the nonprofit picks it up at about $1,700 to $2,500, even $3,000. And if I multi-sell them 5 times, and then there's a spread of $1,500 to $2,000, then you guys get, what is that, $10,000, $7,000. That's how you make money.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
when I first started doing this, I thought, oh, I can get as much money as I could, and I could. And I went, but that's not the way to make money. You sell it one time at the highest level, you're going to make, maybe 3,000 over the top, and okay, that's cool. But if I can multi-sell it a little less below that, and then a lot of people are getting a better deal, you're just going to multi-sell them, and you're going to make a lot more money. And so I know how to do all that. And then I think there's always, with your crowd, with Galeo, I would imagine there might be some kind of celebrity connection. I remember, and I don't know what happened to him, Alejandro Chavez, when I did Ser Familia. Hopefully I do Ser Familia again. We're just talking. You know who Ser Familia is, don't you?
Yeah. Alejandro is no longer with us.
That's what I heard. ¿Qué pasó? I don't know. Everything all right, I hope. Anyway, because I was doing Ser, and I mentioned Cesar Chavez, and he came up later. That was my grandfather. I said, oh my God. And I did interview Cesar Chavez about, I don't know, 5-6 times over my career as a reporter. Anyway, my point being that if you could find something in this community that would do some kind of luncheon or maybe some kind of experience to take it over the top, then I think you make more money. By that, I always use the example of Coach, oh gosh, George, I'm getting old. I promise I won't do this. Vince Dooley, Coach Dooley, he's now gone, God bless his soul. But as you know, he was the winningest coach with UGA.
Yeah.
And so I was doing an event, and they had Coach Dooley there, and it was fly fishing with Vince Dooley. And it was really cool. And I still got the picture. It's precious. But I took my fly rod because I fish, and I said, hey, Coach, would you mind showing us how to fly fish? So on stage, here's Vince Dooley casting a line. So cool. $6,000 twice. And that's what I mean about that kind of experience. The fly fishing trip by itself, yeah, you probably would have gone for $1,000 if we were lucky once, which is fine. But it's a fly fishing trip, and you're going to get it. And it doesn't rise to any level other than it's a great fly fishing trip. But with your fly fishing trip with Vince Dooley, that rises to a different level. So, which is why I always say we're selling memories, not merchandise. So how do we tie? And then you tie it all back into the cause.
Yeah.
So there's definitely an approach to all this.
Yeah, definitely.
So anyway, tell me what my next step is, because I want to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah.
Guys.
If you can send over kind of some quotes.
Okay.
And then I will take that and have a conversation with Jerry, because this would be a budget. It would be adding to the budget.
Well, let me put it this way. There shouldn't be a budget item for a fundraiser. And I get it. People put it in there, but I'm like, what's the point? Because the last thing I want to do is take money from the pockets of you folks before fundraising is done. The money should come out of the money that I raise.
It's more of basically, because the way we work is, if it's a line item, we had already planned. And so I do have to have approval from him. Even if it was like, even if you came and said, okay, $10, I still would end up having to get approval.
No. I understand.
So I will go with him. And then once we make the decision, I will connect with you, and we will figure out our next steps from there. Does that work?
No, of course. What do you think? I mean, well, I think
this definitely could bring in a lot of money. Like I am really right there where I'm like, yeah, I could see this being really useful and potentially something we want to do. And I think it would liven things up, especially if we brought it in at the right time in the run of show and all of that fun stuff. And I'm really loving the fun to need, especially. That's really that. Yes, live auctions are fun and everything, but I'm just, in a way, I feel like that could almost translate, and we'd be able to do it at future events as well with you.
Too.
And so even though it's a breakfast and not the same type of event, where we probably wouldn't have a live auction, but maybe we do the fund of need only at the smaller events.
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of where I'm thinking, and I'm optimistic on it. And unless you come in going, I'm going to need $45 million, I figure you're not. But like, unless the number is something where I just, in good conscience, couldn't say to Jerry, yes, I am behind this, I will probably recommend that it happens.
Well, I mean, I don't have to send, but I'll tell you kind of what my starting approach is with unknowns and nonprofits, which is what I did with that group of the ladies. I'll do 10% of the funds that I'm involved in generating with a minimum and a maximum. That doesn't mean I'll take 10% of all the money. If anybody comes at you like that, you say, no, that's ridiculous. And I know auctioneers that do that. I'm like, dude, really? You're taking 10% of all their money? Well, yeah, I'm like, no, we're not selling merchandise. We're raising funds for a nonprofit. So my first wish is that the nonprofit be the winner here, not the auctioneer. And anyway, that's a different conversation that I have with fellow auctioneers. So typically my starting rate is $1,500 with a minimum and $3,000 as a maximum. That means we need to get to 30,000. And if we don't get to 30,000, then I don't get the money. And that's why I asked, what is your goal? What do you think we can get? And obviously I could shave that down. I've raised the rates over the years because I'm a lot better and I know what I'm doing and I provide good sound advice. But when somebody says, $200, I'm like, I can't do that. What's your first thought on that?
That definitely does sound reasonable and everything. And so it's not something where I'm shell shocked by the number.
No, it's not. And I know the rates of what other folks are charging, and
yeah,
I know everybody in town. I know what everybody's doing, and I'm right.
Yeah. Could you add in, when you send me that quote, could you add in what you would probably estimate that we could raise? Like just based on some of your experience, just that way, because I can say, okay, we would pay him X, but we could potentially raise Y.
Right.
See how this is so much bigger. It's going to keep and stuff like that. And I do think it's great that Jerry's knows you. So it's not going to be like some stranger danger type situation.
tell because I remembered, and I would call Jerry, and but I also had to call the other side, and I've never been a fan of DA King, but anyway, that's just you had to cover all sides, and it was a contentious time for immigration rights and 287G and all kinds of stories that Jerry was part of, and I'm the Latino reporter, and I'm like, yeah, but I really can't show my favoritism here. I'm a journalist, and I had to follow that.
You're like, I have it.
But now I'm your good news auctioneer, and I can follow my heart to my heart's content. Yes, I will definitely send it to you. Okay. Yeah, I think if you have a team in place and you have the software, it sounds like you have both already, and we elaborate on what your mission and messaging would be, and then we wrap that into the fundraising and then put it out there. I don't believe that anybody is going to be surprised by an ask for GALEO. You've always been asking.
I hope so. I mean, like, that's the thing, is that I have been surprised with our crowd. And I would like to retrain them.
Yeah. And the thing I will say is I'm past the point of, oh my gosh, I'm nervous to do this. It's not about me. It's not about the fundraiser. I'm the channel that's going through me. And so if ever I can say, this is the universe working, this is the universe working. I mean, who knew you were a cat lady?
Yeah.
You know?
Awesome.
So
I have
Send me
another
something.
meeting
Yep,
that I
11
need to
o'clock,
hop
so I'll
on
send you
to.
something and we'll go from there.
Perfect.
Keep me in the
Wonderful. Thank
loop.
you so much. I will.
Thank
Bye.
you, Elizabeth. It's a pleasure. All right. Talk to you. Bye-bye.